thanks so much for joining us here tonight. Truth Brigade on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Hope you are having a lovely day. And if not, well, sit back, relax, and grab a pen and paper, because we're going to be learning a lot of information tonight, which will surely brighten your day. Linda Runyon, she is literally an idol, an icon, a hero, truly a pioneer woman. We're going to be talking about wild edibles tonight. She has been teaching people for decades how to live off the land. And, you know, one of her, she has so much wisdom, but one of her favorite quote, or one of my favorite quotes she says, is, "Weeds are in every country of the world, so it's beyond me why there is world hunger. An entire civilization is walking on their food." Isn't that the truth? I mean, you know, this whole we got to feed the world thing and this, and actually all we have to do is learn how to identify what's growing all around us, our front yard, our backyard, the parks, the forests, the cracks in the sidewalks. But literally there is food all over just, you know, waiting for you to enjoy it and learn to identify. Well, she can teach you that. So good to have you here tonight, Linda. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm sorry you had any problem with my phone.
You know, it's live radio. Things happen, and I might even disappear tonight, so.
Let's hope not.
I'll be back, though. That's one thing I can guarantee. Well, Linda, I mean, what a beautiful woman you are, and truly a pioneer. And, you know, it's actually kind of funny to think of going back to the basics as being so radical or revolutionary, because it's kind of our roots, isn't it, Linda?
It sure is, and how can I put it? Nature itself is, to me, the answer, just in every way. I can't begin to tell you, with all the stress of the internet and the this and the that and the whatever, all I do is go out and pick a pansy and pick a petal off of it, one after another. Pansies are edible, and go for it very slowly, and it just changes my whole aspect. You know.
Do you eat the flower and the leaves of your pansies?
Pretty much the flowers are totally edible. I eat roses, pansies, violets. In our books and material, we have all that.
I bet it's hard to keep a garden in your yard.
No, because these pansies you buy one hanging basket of pansies, and you have food for the entire summer.
Do you water them with salad dressing?
No, but sometimes I bring them in and put them in ice cube trays and freeze them, and then when people come, I, kind of shock them with pretty purple ice cubes and yellow pansies and that type of thing.
Oh, that's so much information I want to go over with you tonight, Linda. But first, if you could kind of tell us about, you grew up in, how do you say, Adirondacks. Adirondacks,
yeah.
Adirondacks, okay, got it. Mountains and, of course, homesteading. And how did you get into this whole wild food thing?
Well, the wild food thing came around very naturally because my new husband and myself and a 5-year-old child I had with me, we left for the woods after we saw 2001. He was an IBM executive, actually. And he and I both went, let's do it. Okay. Well, actually, we did. And I can tell you right now, I don't recommend anybody doing it. Not like that. You got to pay your debts and a few other things, but that's a whole show, okay? So we went into the woods, 12 feet of snow, and we had a metal duck boat with a whole bunch of baggage in it and ourselves, and almost killed ourselves getting down the hill to the camp. And we got in this camp that we had driven up to find, and the proper one. We could pay the taxes and the a certain amount, to rent it, and that worked. And at that time, way back in the early 70s, and you know, I got tired walking to town, Christy. I mean, it was 8 miles to town, 8 miles back. And it wasn't that, you know, I minded the walk so much. I mean, in the beginning, everything was exciting, and the deer I saw, and the bear occasionally, and this kind of thing. And it was all, like, exciting. And I'd come home with 50 pounds of food, but they ate it in 3 days. So
wow.
Coming about was really, everything was in a sequence that just was natural. It was a survival sequence, I call it. I looked out, saw all that green around me, and thought, well, how'd they do it for thousands of years?
Mm-hmm.
And I picked a few things I knew, like I knew what clover was, and I didn't know how much to eat or anything like that, but, you know, picked a few things that we knew, like, you know, twisted some pine needles and that kind of thing, and thought, well, maybe I could do something with them, and little by little, that's how it all came about, until the entire, everything that's on our cards and books and everything came about. I ended up with about 50 plants and trees.
Wow. So you were introduced to it, of course, as a child, and what were your
yeah,
like
nobody would go along with it, Christy. It was you're a mother, you know. My mother used to scream, "Get those weeds out of your mouth!" And of course, I was picking onion grass the minute I knew it tasted like onion, and you know, clover heads when they tasted like candy, and to me, and. My little sweater was always filled, my mother said, with clover heads and things like that, and she'd always have to dump them out before I came in the house. And to me, it was natural, because here you have these natural things around you. And, of course, we need to learn it through books and DVDs and things like this. But we need to start with showing our kids what we got free, like a pansy, for instance. You know, it's not wild, but it's a common thing. Or, you know, to me,
or even
the most
crabgrass. I mean, who doesn't know? Who isn't trying to fight off crabgrass? And here you are making muffins.
Well, that just seemed logical. If you could eat it, you know, you might as well. I mean, I look at food, all this food that is in all our stuff. I look at all those things as everything. They're not just what some teachers say it's tea or it's food or if it's food, if you can ingest it, to me, it's a vegetable and it's a main dish and it's a tea and it's a concentrate that you, if you steep it in water, you end up with a concentrate you put in your freezer and then you pop it out and you got the soup. You know,
and a dessert and a breakfast, I'm noticing, with all your recipes here.
Oh, my recipes! I tell you, there are people I know right now doing recipes that would make mine look a shame. Mine to me are homestead recipes. Mine are the kind, very simple recipes that you didn't need to have anything but, you know, a couple chickens or you know, you didn't have to walk to town. But the things that you can get today for wild food have built whole TV shows and stuff now today. I was asked to do one way back in the, let's see, early 80s, when People magazine found me around 82, about 1982. Wow. And they did, I have an article, Rudy Valley, 1982 is on the cover. And they did a 10-day thing, live with us for 10 days, and that showed me another world that I had left, and that's the world I'm in now. And I'm too old now to do all that. I don't want the cook show in New York, and I don't want this and that and whatever that was offered me back then.
What's your, well, from childhood, what was your favorite little weed, wild edible?
Oh, a red clover ball. That was my favorite because it has little tiny nectar sections on it. And you can hand that to the tiniest of children. It's totally amazing. They can be 2 years old and they'll pick apart every little succulent part and nibble on it. And this is how a lot of the mothers I know teach their children, just certain things, you know. And
and so you just walk around and pick the beautiful flowers?
But
just pop them in your mouth.
But that is wrong, of course, for anyone to do. You have to follow the foraging rules today. And this is
we
what
better
you teach
go
your
over
child.
those rules, huh?
Yes, and they're on everything that I do. And for heaven's sakes, if you taught your child that as a lesson every day, just went out and did. The foraging rules are everybody has different ones. Everybody has different ones. There's a lot of foraging teachers, and wilderness teachers today, and we've all come up with the same safety ways to test. And mine are, of course, all the standard ones that you might have heard about. But, I mean, I learned mine by going up in the log cabin in the woods and sitting there for an hour every single day until I found another food. Because you have to, trust yourself. You got to be in touch with yourself to do it, to do the foraging rules. I would see a plant I thought was edible, and I'd crush it, roll it, and smell it. And if I didn't think I liked it, I threw it down right away. I tell mothers, teach your children that. If you don't like the smell, don't even touch it.
Okay.
Then, that's number one. Number two, take something that you do like the smell of, and that's the first rule. Second rule is don't put it in your mouth. Don't ever pop it in. That's the second one.
So pretend we're not 3 years old.
No, but this is for adults. Because, boy, if you're out in the desert, as we were out in California and Arizona and such, that sun there whacks you out something fierce, and you need to do these foraging rules for something brand new to you. If you have a teacher with you, fine, that's a different thing. But if you're by yourself and you have this cactus in front of you that we say you can eat, you're going to want to test that yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you take that thing, crush it, rub it, the juice now. Don't put it in your mouth, but rub it over your teeth on your gum. Now, this sounds silly, but if it doesn't burn, itch, swell, do anything wrong, you rubbed it over top of your teeth. I waited 20 minutes. This I did religiously on every new plant. And then I'd bring that plant down to the house. I liked the smell, and I didn't do anything that way. And I'd bring it back down to the cabin, and I'd put boiling water over it, just a little piece now. And I'd sip that cup of water with a little piece in it. Because if you had a poison, Christie, something really bad, by this time you're going to know it, hopefully. And, of course, So if you follow these rules, you're going to be safe in a survival situation. And
so you're saying to test, crush it up, and
rub it over your teeth. Mm-hmm. Now, there was one plant in 12 years that fooled me. I had no books or anything. It fooled me for 12 years. I was so embarrassed when I found out what the heck I had done. And someone told me that, you had yarrow. And I said, what do you mean? Well, yarrow is a plant that when you crush it and roll it, that juice numbs the area you put it on. The Iroquois used it for compound fractures and everything else. So this is a well-known thing. And this particular plant acts like a number. And every time I did that over my teeth, my gum would get numb. And so I would never, and I knew I could eat that, but I did not because it produced that reaction. So if a mother takes a piece of plant and puts it on, crushes it up and puts it on a child's arm, on the forearm with a Band-Aid overnight, you would trust whether you had a reaction or not, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah.
Well, this is why I decided that I just wasn't going to do it. And I, for 12 years, did not use a very valuable plant. When I found out, it's on my cards, and it says that it...
Well, hey, I've made worse mistakes than that. I mean, is that all you've got, really?
No, I got more, but I don't want to go into all the negative. That's why we do the stuff we do, so that you'll be safer.
Okay, I mean, I'm just trying to imagine that you didn't have books, you didn't have the Internet, you just went out and tried each of these individually.
Yeah, but we were 60 miles from the nearest hospital also. And, of course, I made that ride in a pickup truck with the chains clanking a couple of times. And you don't want to do that. But your system's not the same as mine. We're all different. Even though we say we can eat that plant, you better test it out on yourself.
Okay, that's right. So dandelion, for instance, might be good for you. It might not be good for me for some reason.
It's possible, but so far now, Christie, I've never met anybody allergic to wild food. But then again, I make that statement with a tongue in cheek.
Just in case.
Yeah, no. A lot of people say dandelion is like bitter to them, but if I told you that 5 or 10 of those leaves equal a glass of milk and calcium, you might listen.
Yeah.
Or if I told you could cut the stems up and stir fry them with garlic, salt, and olive oil, and they're absolutely delicious as beans, little beans, you might listen. Or if you French fry the root and throw it in a salad that you're familiar with, you have boosted your nutrition about 10 times in the lettuce that you're eating. You might listen.
Absolutely. You're so right. I mean, we're just simply not taught that. And obviously, decades of study, I thank you so very much for compiling it into these books for there's no greater gift than wisdom and knowledge. And, simply knowing that you can feed yourself wherever you are just by learning to identify what's growing naturally all around. I mean, you know what? How cool is that? You don't even have to go water it. You don't have to fertilize it. It does it all for you.
You're great, Christie, because you got it. You got it. I mean, we do these wild food walks, and, we have done these what's going to be in this next book coming up, and it's just amazing to hear a mother say, we have this all over our backyard. We do, yes, we do. And, it's just like it opens a world that we're getting further and further away from with our internet and technology. And that's the truth, and I'll make that statement as a grandmother. You can tell my age, right? But I mean, thank God for the technology. Thank God for, my son helping me publish all these books and do all these things. Thank God that I'm on the show with you. But I can tell you that to see people worrying about terrorism in the food chain or anything like that is nonsense. It's crazy. Totally crazy. Because that is the furthest thing from my mind. Absolutely the furthest thing. So how could I come out of the woods and not put it down? How could I? I can't begin to tell you. How could I possibly go through the rest of my life without putting it down? So
Absolutely. Well, we are very grateful to you. I'm telling you, lots of good feedback when they heard you were coming on the show.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, my gosh, I have this package, and I have the whole enchilada. And
oh, boy.
I mean, really, you are reaching out your knowledge, and you know what? People are emulating you. They're getting out there, and they're doing it, and, feeding their families. And, you no longer have to worry about food another day of your life by simply reading your books and watching your video and just doing what Linda did your whole life.
Well, Linda and many, many others who, not maybe for their whole lives, but some of these guys are phenomenal. Christie, I'm watching the new way to teach kids. It's just incredible. These guys are pardon the expression as a grandmother here, but it blew me away one day. They had the kids blindfolded sitting around the pots. This walk is in pot.
So
this is the only answer
as far as I'm concerned. And they learn to identify them by smell and touch? They blindfold
the kids. First thing they do is blindfold them, and they put groups of 4 kids around a pot of plants. And they are told now to figure out all you can about this plant. We're not going to tell you anything about it except it's safe. Okay? Mm-hmm. But you figure out everything that you can about this plant sitting around. And those kids are phenomenal. It's immediate how they figure out the softness and the texture of the leaf. They can't see anything now. It's wonderful, these kids coming out of cities, and it's incredible to see the change in them and how they feel far less, I can't even describe it. And yet I felt that. My parents had a camp up in up in upstate New York, and to me, I looked at it as the real world. And then we went back to Plainfield, New Jersey, and there I was back in the city, which wasn't real. Yeah,
it was like, the real world.
Man-made, I used to call it. Make my mother so mad. Everything is man-made here. But it's very much like that for a child to go there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Sounds like a wonderful time. Linda, let's get back to the wild foraging, the do's and don'ts, because, we need to know as much what to look for, where to forage, also as where not to forage, or where is not recommended.
Exactly. I don't approve of buying produce on the edge of the road because you're getting, seriously, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody's business, but unless it's screened or protected in some way, because, the fumes come out and come down. They used to be heavy metals, but they're far less now, which is good. And so we say go 100 feet off the road.
So stay at least 100 feet off the road.
And if you're going to forage, you better ask what was there before. Because many a time I did get surprised because I would ask a neighbor or someone, and they would say, oh, years ago there was a gas station here, or whatever. So this is why you're doing that. You're doing it to be sure that this is a clean area. Of course, if you're up in the mountains or something, it is. But you're talking urban food foraging, But ask what was there before you. And forage after a rain if you can, because it has washed and cleaned everything off.
Okay. So after the rain is one of the best times?
Always a good time to forage. And always bring a bunch of, I do, this is well documented in our material, I bring string about 4 to 6 feet. I bring several parts of string, like several of them. And what I'll do is wind the food when I find it around the string, and then some more up a little higher. And it would take time to try to explain it all to you, Christie, but the drawings and stuff would show you quick. And then you throw it around your shoulders, and you have many, 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 many meals or several weeks' supply of dried food there around your shoulders. And it's good to do that because, you don't have enough pockets once you get into this. And you want to carry paper bags, never plastic, because the paper bags, the plants won't sweat. And, on a hot day, they'll go before you get them home.
Okay. All right. So paper bags, not plastic.
Yeah. And these are all... pretty well must that you'd find. And wear gloves if you can, only because you're a novice. And you're likely to pick nettle without realizing it is nettle.
It'll let you know right away, though.
What's that?
It'll let you know right away,
though. Yeah. Have you ever done that? You ever done?
I've met a few jumping nettles and thistles and...
it's always a good lesson. And then, actually, I never realized where it actually came from. I just leave the area and never look, it was like, oh, ow, I don't want to go there. And I never looked back. But it's a beautiful regal plant, and you can literally, it's a very high content of protein. And you can bring the proper equipment to harvest that plant very nicely and then let it grow back. Because some of these plants, the more you take, the more they grow. And it's like mowing your lawn. The more crabgrass you take off, the more you have. I mean, this is the very nature of it. And the abundance it's giving you is just awesome. I've logged as many as 36 meals off of one single, with photographs and stuff. I mean, I could get so finite for the people that need to know it that way, where you only have like 5 or 6 plants in your backyard, but you can farm those 5 or 6 the entire summer.
Okay, so then you would want to probably harvest the whole plant at the end of the season?
No, all year. I'm letting some lamb's quarters grow now, Christie, that are up about a foot tall. Now they're going to get up around 3 to 4 feet tall. And I am going to I am farming it now by taking the centers of that one single plant, and I'm making a bush out of it. It's just bushing out, and it'll bush out until that one plant's going to give me everything I need. Because it's delicious. Lamb's quarters is like, whoa, it is so good. And I don't care who.
So you just snip as much as you need.
Yep.
And then it pushes
exactly,
out.
And it will replace itself.
Okay.
And then some. A lot of these plants are so prolific that this is their very nature.
Now, what about mullein? Does that do that too?
No.
Okay.
I wish it did. Mullein not only is far and few between, but, I revere that. To me, that's like, oh, boy. I could write a whole book just on that one plant. The Iroquois used to use that. Of course, anything they did was, in my opinion, the correct thing with the plants, and the bark eaters were doing the correct thing, the Abenaki part of the Iroquois. And that's how I lived up there in many ways. And I finally found wish I'd had a book to go by, because I found that same thing's true, I now know that they did. And one mullein plant being it's so tall, stately, 6, 7, 8 feet tall. When my little boy had pneumonia one winter, we were snowed in for about 3 weeks, and literally there's no way to get help. I mean, seriously. And it wasn't like a movie where you can go out and write help in the snow and have a helicopter going over. We never saw it. I'd have fainted if I'd seen one. Anyway, so I would dig up a mullein root down 4 feet of snow, 5 foot of snow. You just take the coals out from the stove. It took quite a doing, but I had to. The boy was very sick.
So, okay, you in the snow, literally, you dug down 4 to 5 feet and pulled out that mullein root.
Right.
If you would, please continue.
I'd love to, and because I want to tell everybody, when things are frozen, it's like a food field down there that's frozen. It's just your big freezer. In a survival way, that's what's there. So I mean, it's frozen. So to me, that was nothing strange. What was strange was finding one, because a mullein is not. You have to look to find the. And if you have 4 or 5 feet of snow, it's kind of hard to find a dandelion, but they're there.
Yeah.
You just go down by the rocks of the trees, you'll find a whole salad frozen. We've done that many a time. We like yearn for the green, and we did things like that. So, okay, I trim it down, clean it up, and then I put it in a pot with some water, and then I just, Well,
the leaves are probably all dead.
Oh, they're
right?
all gone. All you're going to see is that brown stalk above the snow. But that's what told me the mullein root is down there frozen. See, so
okay.
It's a godsend to me, because that saved my boy from really bad pneumonia that year. I could tell from the cough and everything that if we didn't get something into him, we were going to be in big trouble. And I tried cherry bark, and boy, is that bitter! Oh my goodness! The wild cherry tree is a very bitter bark. So, but in a survival way, everything is there. And
so what did you do with that big old root then?
I just trimmed it down, cut some pieces off, put it in water, and steeped it until the water was darker color, telling me that it was good enough. It got darker and darker and darker, sort of a beige color, and then it got into almost a brown. That's the way I cook something if I wanted it to be a syrup. And I added, I think I had sugar back in then. Those days, that was one of the things we walked to town for every month or two. And I sprinkled some of that in there, and he drank an ounce every couple hours. And of course, I'm not a nutritionist or an herbalist, but I have. Don't have a license for wild food, but my experience,
you don't need a license to have knowledge.
You'd be surprised. Yeah, well, you have to be careful.
That's true. Okay.
So, I mean, you could look mullein up in any herbal book, and it's going to tell you just what my books say, except I embellish with some of my stories, so. I know
we mentioned quite a few herbs tonight. Let's see, mullein, lamb's quarters, dandelions. Those are pretty common, and probably people find them everywhere from California, Florida, Rhode Island, what's on the Northwest? That would be Washington.
Yeah, well, I took the Department of Agriculture has helped me a lot. I got into pickles lots of times, like especially with that cards. I use the Department of Agriculture a lot, and because their information is good, and it said that the plant was in every state in the United States, and that's why I can say that. Mm-hmm. I haven't been to every state. There's no way. Yeah. So I use them, and I use the Chippewa up on the Great Lakes a lot because they wrote way back in 1945, and I won't get into the details because I've really probably forgotten exact years, but they have pharmacopoeias of things that they did, like maple. Your little helicopters come down out of a maple tree.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we make maple. Teach your little child to take a pair of scissors, little blunt pair of scissors there, and this is fun for kids. And they cut the meaty portion. They cut the wing portion off, so they have all these little meats. I call them the little ends, and they can be pounded with a rock into a maple cake. You can fry that, and it's very reminiscent of maple syrup. It's very light, but you can taste it.
Wow, that sounds delicious.
That's out of the Department of Agriculture. The Department of the Chippewas established that up on the Great Lakes, and they also established, and no one's quarreled with it, obviously, because it's there for your research purposes if you want to go that way. And like every 6 inches of a weeping willow tree or a wild willow tree is aspirin.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So pussy willows I came up with are a lot of fun because then the kids can trim the pussy willows off. Mm-hmm. And I'm just being facetious, but we've done this in classes. And then you strip the bark, the kids, and then they can make their own aspirin that way by either chewing a 6-inch section of bark or making tea out of it. But you can go as far as you want with your children very carefully with this subject, and what a way to see the world, because if I didn't see the world the way I see it, I'd be in big trouble, I think. Yeah. I mean, I see it as abundance everywhere, just everywhere. I mean, a lot of my card decks have gone to Iraq, Christie, and, I see the soldiers waiting in the same food that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Afghanistan's filled with this food. The poppy fields, the weeds in between the poppies are all the same food. Lamb's quarters, this and that. It's all the same thing.
Wow. Well, let's talk about some of these then, since we know they're so widely available and abundant. And you know what? You said earlier clover was your favorite.
Yes.
Tell us why we want to make friends with clover.
Well, thank you. There's several types of clover, so you want to be aware of that. And that's why I preferred the red clover, which is taller and it has a red blossom on the end, which as a child I always was picking. And even I can remember that I was selective in eating the leaves that had the white stripe, like a V stripe on it. I remember that as a child. And the white clover it's not as elliptical, as the red clover. The leaf is a different shape. The white clover is round and has a white blossom on the top. And know that white clover in quantity, they make great mothballs. Those little, they really work.
Just the blossoms?
Yep. We dried them by the handful and threw them all in different closets and stuff, and never had a bit of problem. That's well documented that they make mothballs. Because they have a chemical in them that is not in the red clover. They have a chemical that, with the elderly, can be a problem if you're on Coumadin, which thins the blood.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to, like, eat quantity of white clover. It can thin your blood.
Okay.
Red clover.
So the red clover will have the little white, cute little decoration
with
on
the red
leaf.
ball. So that's what I would always say to people. You need to do that. No, stay away from the white clover unless it's a survival situation, and that's all you can find. In Japan, China, they walk to the markets to get the best bunch of red clover because it's walked up, it's chopped up and stir-fried in a wok. It's high in protein, it's high in, well, here, I can read, let me read what is in there in the book. Now they've got the flowers and the shoots in here. So let's do the shoots, meaning the leaves and the stems. And it's over a 6-ounce glass of milk in calcium. It's 142 milligrams calcium.
Wow.
1,166 units of beta carotene. Woohoo! And it has 1,000 units of niacin. Boy, is that ever... And potassium, 345 milligrams. See, this is so good.
That's what, a half a cup serving?
Yes. Everything in my book is half cup. USDA requirements type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they were done by probably the best herbalist in the world, and you can read all about Dr. Duke in the book where all this information was broken down and given to me.
Okay. So, I mean, red clover, you could use the whole plant, the stems, the flowers.
But you know what? You can farm just one plant all summer long. I mean, you have it all summer right through fall. I don't. I just like mow it like you're mowing your lawn. Take a pair of scissors. I have it growing in a window boxes. I have different plants growing in a window box, which I got by seed. You can buy wild food seeds now, and they'll be on our website where you can get them. And I'll just say Bountiful Gardens out in California, they have wild food seeds, and Richter's, REICTERS in Canada, has wild food seeds, and you can get everything, practically everything. You know, from mullein to, but I've never had much luck with growing mullein in quantity. That's very difficult to grow. But clover, oh my gosh, it falls right out. I mean, just throw it in the ground, up it comes. And you just shear it with scissors. And I get literally hundreds of meals off of these window boxes because I'm so busy. I just go out with a pair of scissors and shear them. So if you're disabled or live, and this will all be in my 8th book, all the research will be in that. Coming, hopefully.
Okay, now what about the roots of red clover?
They're fine, but I mean, I don't ever pull up when I can be farming it. Say?
Okay.
Right.
But
so
maybe
I mean,
if it's a survival situation in the winter,
then that's a different thing. If I'm getting ready for winter, I can be apt to pull plants straight up. You know.
Okay.
I would just shake off all the dirt and put them upside down and dry them. And what we did was take all that dried debris of clover or whatever, and we would grind it into powder. I put it in a pillowcase. We didn't have electricity or anything. And but now it would be simple, and it's very simple for me to put it up now into flour. And I'd use that flour all winter, make little cakes that kept us in the wild food chain all winter.
So just by simply grinding up the stems and the leaves, that's your flour?
Correct.
Wow. What about do you use any roots in the flour or just the stems and leaves?
Yep.
Oh, and roots.
Yep. It's mostly leaves. And my son would sit with, my youngest boy would sit with a pillowcase and grind them. That was his job at night. He'd sit around the pot belly and, So
does that flour, is it the same in proportion to the regular flour?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely, it's too strong for the uninitiated. And all the recipes in the back of the book there would tell you usually it's about a quarter cup to a cup of regular flour. So you're going to be adding, if you got 3 cups of whole wheat, you're going to be adding a half a cup you know, and you get stronger and stronger as you go along. But what the important thing is, the nutrition in that. I have little jars on my stove, and each one of these jars is one of these simple things that is all over the place, from dandelion to clover to whatever. And all I do is put a couple teaspoons into a stir fry. Or if I'm making marinara sauce, just throw some in, you know, and...
okay.
Yeah.
All right. What are some of your favorite recipes you make with clover?
Oh, wow. Oh, my, there's so many.
Well, I know they're in the book, but maybe you can kind of like tantalize our taste buds with something that sounds real good.
I don't even know where to begin. Because I would... Oh, dear. See, I make plain things. So I would like to make clover falafels. They're one of my favorites. Or a veggie burger out of clover.
Wow.
Yeah. You just...
Clover falafel.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a clover pasta with beans and basil.
Sure. I mean, you just... a cup of cooked falafel, or falafel, cooked clover... added to what you're used to, how you make falafel, half a cup of falafel mix, add a cup of cooked wild food, and your olive oil, your safflower oil, and you have yourself something that tastes entirely different, and it's about 10 times better for you.
Wow, what a great idea! And so you kind of cook
and it's free, you know. That's the thing.
Do you harvest like large amounts, obviously to dry or make the flour or ground up? Or?
Well, in my older age now, I'm at that point. I'm going to say it straight out in case somebody popped in my back door. I'm adding nutrition and stuff like that to quicker meals. Now I'm not cooking the whole long thing from start to finish. I'm adding the nutrition now because I'm getting to the point in my life where it's more important for me to pick the food, dry it, add the nutrition. Yeah, because I'm back to regular. I'm a vegetarian, but I'm back to I'm not 100% wild now. I will eat macaroni and cheese if I can get a hold of it. I mean it, but I'll put in something. I'll put in squatters or something in there, and of course my friends are horrified it turns green, but it works.
Who knew? We're just not taught that, you know, we can get our calcium by red clover or whatever.
Well, I'm so thankful that I actually went in and did, you know, that this all happened because
and we really don't even need seeds because, I mean, hello, one little dandelion out there, how many seeds is that going to give you?
Thousands.
You know, talk about like food storage, and I know there's a lot of, rumors going around, and people are just spending tons of money,
I know.
You know, eating a bunch of food, sticking it in their basement or whatever, when, you know what, invest a few dollars, get one of Linda's book, and know how to feed yourself no matter where you are. All the time. It's, you know, that sounds like an investment to me.
Well, our lives are so busy, you know. I mean, I can remember buying certain things and throwing. This is before I went in the woods, putting them in a bureau drawer down the cellar. I'll never forget that. Thinking that, you know, during the Kennedy administration, that, you know, we could really have a problem there, you know. And I remember saving up the food for my kids in cans and putting it away. I remember that. So, I mean, this is a new age now. We need to explore things that are right under your nose. You know, we need to really explore what you already... And that way you get outside and you get your vitamin D and you don't have to buy the supplements. You'll save money everywhere you turn.
Free vitamin D.
Yeah. You'll save all that money.
All right, so red clover, what's your next favorite weed that's widely abundant?
Probably the amaranth. Amaranth, when I found out they're selling the amaranth flour and the cookies and everything in the food stores, you know, I think it was great. I ate a lot of it, just as, you know, we went out and bought a lot of it. But the thing was, in Phoenix, you see, we didn't have the amaranth. It was 110 every day. But back here, we have the amaranth. I mean, I'm back here where it's green all the way around. And amaranth grows roadside and around gardens and places like that, cultivated areas, I call it. And it's one of the highest in nutrition in the world. That's why they picked it. Yeah, that's why they picked it to do the amaranth flour and cookies and such to help.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is literally, you could stand still probably and get 2-3 quarts of flour without even turning around. And that's how much is here. Right now, I could fill a tractor trailer full of it, just around it. But don't pick in a cornfield, because sometimes they're sprayed. Most of the time they're sprayed. On the edges of the cornfields is where you're going to see the weeds. The weeds aren't on the inside of the cornfield, and that's because it's been sprayed in there. So I would not pick around a cornfield or an orchard, because they're heavily sprayed too. Around orchards. Yeah.
And so the amaranth, it's same thing. You use the leaves and the stems, the whole plant?
Yeah, all of it. I let it, again, stay where it is. I have 6 plants growing in a pot back there, and I will let it all stay there, not cutting the root out, because I can farm those 6 plants straight through the hot summer into the fall, and then I'll take the whole thing and put it through.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just that it's such a gift that's been given us, because these little plants give back to you as much as you take from them, and it's just an incredible thing. Oh. And it makes more sense. You know,
absolutely.
Everything makes more sense.
Now, I'm sorry, Linda, but we're out of time here, and your
Thank you,
son
Christie.
is on the text chat, and I guess we gave out the wrong zip code.
Oh, my gosh, aren't you guys good?
I'm so glad I caught that right in time for
I am impressed.
Well, thank you, Weed Lady's son, and thank you so much for joining us, Linda, tonight, sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. Such a pleasure. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Abundant blessings and love to all. We will see you tomorrow night with Tobias Lars here at Truth Brigade Radio.